Hello, my name is Dr. Matthew Younglove. I'm the Assistant Professor of Saxophone at Tennessee Tech University, and I'm also a Vandoren Artist-Clinician. I'm here to talk to you today about long tone exercises to improve your tone. We're going to work on a couple of assumptions. The first one operating that you're using good, proper, well-functioning equipment. So you have a high-quality saxophone that works, all the pads seal. You have a high-quality mouthpiece that you know is going to work properly, and you have a good reed. All of these things are important for us to have a good sound before we can really talk about all the elements that we as humans control for our good saxophone sound. Now, there are three important tenets of good sound. So these three tenets, or three legs of a tripod, as it were, are important for your good sound to be stable, to be present. So we have to work on all three of these. The first is embouchure. So the first exercise we're going to work on targets the embouchure muscles. So let's first talk about quickly making sure we have a really good solid embouchure and we understand that concept. I like to use my thumb and pretend that my thumbnail is my reed, so I can push my lower lip over my teeth. So step 1, lower lip over teeth. Step 2, top teeth down. Step 3, say ooh. That creates a good seal around your thumb or mouthpiece and will help you create a good embouchure. So we're going to use this as we move forward and talk about our first exercise, working on targeting the saxophone embouchure. So the first exercise I'm going to teach you has a name that one of my teachers gave it. Dr. Clifford Lehman calls this exercise chromatic descent. So we're going to start on the note B with the octave key, and we're going to play long tones, and we're going to work our way all the way down to the lowest note on the saxophone, low B flat or low A, depending on the model of your horn. So we're going to start on B. We're going to play a pattern of half note, whole note. So let's go ahead and play this exercise together. We'll do each note cycle twice. So use the guide on the screen here as a reference as we work on this exercise together. For the sake of this video's duration, I will not continue the exercise all the way down to low B flat, but in your individual practice, you should definitely continue this same exercise, practicing in this same pattern, all the way down to the lowest possible note on your instrument. Notice that the image here on the screen stops on the note C sharp, but you should continue this all the way down to low B flat or low A. If you're not already accustomed to playing for extended periods of time, roughly 5 to 7 minutes nonstop, you might start to feel a little burn in these face muscles around here. Those are your embouchure muscles getting a workout, so that's actually a good thing. You want to feel a little bit fatigue in here as you do this exercise until you've developed the muscles and you're able to do this every single day as a good warm-up. I mentioned a moment ago this takes about 5 to 7 minutes to complete, depending on your tempo, starting from B, working your way all the way down to low B flat. And you do this exercise nonstop. You'll take breaths, but other than that, you're not stopping playing. And I want you to think about and answer this question to yourself. When's the last time you played 5 to 7 minutes without stopping? Usually in a band piece or even a solo piece, you're going to have periods of rest, and you're not going to play for that long of a period of time. So it can be really taxing if you try to play a piece like the Bozza aria that requires extended periods of playing without really many breaks. Or an unaccompanied work on the saxophone is another example. So when you work on this exercise, it's really good for endurance and for developing those embouchure muscles. Now we move on to step 2. We're going to talk about how to work on and develop air support. So I have an exercise we're going to do together to work on air support. When it comes to creating good air support on the saxophone, one of the common problems that a developing saxophonist encounter is the failure to engage the core muscles. So I want everyone to think about what it's like to tighten your core. You can think of this with a couple analogies. One, you can think about what it's like to try to activate your six-pack if you're trying to show off your finely tuned muscles. Or you can think about what it's like to receive, like if you're messing around with your buddies and you're trying to receive a punch. What is it like when you tighten your core and try to make your stomach as hard as possible? That's activating your abdominal wall. So your ab muscles are really important for compressing and creating pressure on your lungs. The diaphragm muscle is really important for breathing in. So when you breathe in, you activate the diaphragm. You can feel that muscle tighten when you breathe in. And then when you go to push air out, we have to tighten the abdominal wall to create pressure on our lungs to push the air back out. So we want to work really hard to generate air pressure so that we can get the right amount of pressure on the back side of the reed, that the reed acts like an oscillator or a transducer to create the sound waves that we produce. So we've got to get really good air pressure. A couple good ways to think about this is starting from a loud dynamic, and then as we decrescendo to a softer dynamic, focusing on making sure our abs are tight and our abdominal wall is activated. So I want to try this exercise together. We're going to start on the note C, middle of the horn, and we're going to play starting forte, and then we're going to decrescendo all the way down to the softest possible dynamic that we can play to niente, essentially. We want to try to diminuendo to nothing with no air sounds creeping into our tone, just having good air pressure and air support. The one thing you need to really focus on is keeping your abdominal wall activated, activating your abs. Here we go. Now let's work our way down chromatically. We'll do the note B. Now let's go down chromatically again, B flat. Continue this exercise all the way down as low as you can go and still getting a good sound. Once you're able to successfully execute that exercise, try the inversion of that. Try starting from nothing and activating your core before you even start your note, and then pushing your air and getting the note to start with no air sounds, just beginning tone, all the way back up to a forte dynamic. Then you can try doing it from soft to loud and back down, or the inversion of that, from loud to soft and back up. Great exercises for working on playing long tones with good air support and activating the core that helps generate proper air pressure. The third tenet of good sounds on the saxophone is oral cavity shape. This is probably the hardest to discuss and one of the hardest to conceive in your mind, to understand how significant what happens on the inside of the oral cavity is for the production of sound out on the other side of your saxophone. But your oral cavity shape has a number of factors for both resonance as well as air pressure. Much like you could take your thumb on the end of a hose to create more water pressure. We know there's a property of physics where when you reduce the surface area through which a fluid can flow, it increases pressure. You put your thumb on the end of a hose, it increases water pressure. Our tongue, the back of our tongue, can operate on the inside of our mouth to manipulate different shapes and help us generate air pressure right at the face of the reed, which helps the reed vibrate in different frequencies and at different registers. So oral cavity shape has an impact on air pressure, as well as how open or closed our throat is has an impact on the general resonance and openness and beauty of our tone. So we want to work on different exercises that help with that. The first one we're going to talk about is just a basic overtone exercise. We're going to learn to control and manipulate the different octaves of the saxophone without using the octave key. If we can learn how to manipulate our air pressure in our tongue, we're going to be able to figure out how to get the sounds we want out of the saxophone with the best possible tone. So, step number 1. I want everyone to finger low D. Play low D like this. Good. The next step, not using the octave key, try to manipulate and make that note come out, but don't bite the reed. Don't squeeze the reed any harder. We're not manipulating our embouchure for this. We're going to try to change our oral cavity and air pressure back here. Think about pushing your air up higher like you were a dolphin with a blowhole and you were trying to push water out of that blowhole. So if you're able to get that note out, now we're going to try getting the high one out and slurring it to the low one, just like this. You'll notice that my thumb is off the saxophone only to demonstrate to you that I'm not using the octave key. It's actually better for your saxophone technique development to keep your thumb on the saxophone at this point. Notice my embouchure did not move at all. This is not an embouchure exercise. This is the inside of the oral cavity. It's almost thinking like the tongue saying E versus ah. We notice that you can keep your mouth pretty stable and go E-oh, E-oh. That's all tongue motion. So you want to try and do the same thing while playing the saxophone. You'll also notice I'm not using my tongue for either note, the first note or the second note. I'm attempting to get the note to initiate with just air pressure. So I'm not saying ta, it's more of a ha or a he that I'm starting the note with. I want you to experiment with this. So we started on the note D, we'll work our way up to E flat now. Try the note E if you're successful with E flat. And then F and F sharp and G and so on and so forth all the way up the saxophone. You want to be able to get the palm key notes out in the same manner. So until you can get all the way up to high F or high F sharp, whichever your horn model is able to do, or high G in some cases, you want to make sure that you're working your way all the way up as high as you can go with these overtones. This is really helping you discover and hone the skills that happen in the inside the oral cavity. And this is the first step of many exercises that can help progress that skill set. There are many resources and books devoted to this particular skill set. This is just the introductory exercise to help you work on exercises that work specifically and target the various tenants, the 3 tenants we mentioned before for good saxophone tone. So if you start including these and implementing these into your daily practice, you'll see very quick returns on improving your tone, your intonation, and you're going to be more happy with your sound as a whole. I hope you've enjoyed this video and I hope it improves your sound. Feel free to email me, reach out to me via email or my website if you're curious and have more questions or want extended exercises to improve any one of these components, whether it's your embouchure, your air support, or your oral cavity shape. There are more exercises that can be added when you're ready for that step in improvement. Thank you much.